To Knicks Nation on this Tuesday night. Knicks Weekly episode 58 part 2 is here, man. On tonight's episode, is it time to move on from Tom Thibodeau? Tonight's guest says, yeah, it might be the move, man. So a lot of you guys might want to tap in. We got a good show tonight. Also, what will happen with Obi Toppin, man? We've been talking about this one for a number of years. Will he stay? Will he go? What will his role be on this team, man? We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, Carmelo Anthony in a sit-down interview at Sports Illustrated. Shout out to Chris Herring who got the interview. Talks a little bit of Knicks. We're going to talk about some of the tidbits from that article and react to it as well. So lock in. Salute to everybody in the chat. Hit that thumbs up button for you boys. CP the Franchise, Alex Trataros, and tonight's guest, Eric Samulski, Knicks beat writer for the AM New York. We're going to chat about it, man. So let's lock in. Shout out to our sponsors tonight, Manscaped. And let's get into it, man. Knicks Weekly, episode 58, part 2. All right, man. Salute, man. Al, how you feeling, bro?
All right, man. Chilling, doing my own thing. Watching these NBA playoffs. Crazy that we got to see LeBron James get swept by the Denver Nuggets. I got to say that because, man, this guy is good at changing the narrative.
Yeah.
Because he was like, whoa. I don't want to be talked about that I got swept. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm retiring, potentially. Good job by LeBron James. Good job by LeBron James.
Listen, man.
As the full media cycle going haywire.
Going bananas. Going bananas over nothing, man. But, that is the essence of LeBron.
How you doing, bro?
Yeah, I'm all right, man. I'm all right. A little bit of a doubleheader for me. I did NBA radio today from 1 to 4. Shout out to our guy, Antonio Daniels. Great guy, man. Great guy, great analyst. Great co-host, had a good time. We talked extensively about Nuggets and Lakers for 3 hours and LeBron's fake retirement, and touched a little bit on Heat Celtics, man. So a little bit of a doubleheader. I took my old man nap at about 8:30, 9:30 to get a second wind. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure if that's where you are in your life yet, but you will be there. You will be there, man. Where you're gonna need
getting there, man. Let me tell you something. After I work out, getting ready for these shows, there's a good 15-minute power nap that I gotta take.
Yeah, you gotta get a little old man nap in. It's quick, just whatever you could do. It could be 20 minutes, could be half hour, could be. I went for the full hour, so. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good tonight and ready for tonight's show, man. Eric, how you feeling, man?
Is it more of an old man thing if you skip the nap and just go to bed? Like I've been just getting into bed at 9:30.
That's good too. That'll work. You know.
We talked about this off. Like I got a 10-month-old child, so I'm like, who knows when he's gonna get up? I need my sleep. It's 9:30. There's nothing here for me anymore. I'm getting into bed.
There's no Knicks. I mean, if you care about Celtics in Miami with the Celtics facing the sweep themselves, and right now they're up by 9 with the fourth quarter just underway. Yeah, why not, man? Tap out early. Get your 8 if you can.
I'm used to watching a lot of playoff basketball because I wasn't burned out from watching the Knicks all the time. But now it's like we had a good postseason run. Covering at the Garden, was at the Garden a couple nights super late. So now, you could take your foot off the gas a little bit and say, I'll sit a couple of these games out.
Coast into the summer, man. Absolutely, man. Well, listen, this is your first time on the show. We've dissected this team at length. We've dissected their series loss to the Miami Heat at length. I mean, just give me your overall perspective on the season on the whole.
Yeah, I think you can't think the season was anything other than a success. From a statistical point of view, it's probably the second best season they've had this century. The team was fun to watch too. I mean, if you want it from just a pure entertainment value, there was a fun team to watch, team that got really exciting at times with the way they played basketball. I thought, there's a lot of really good young talent too. So this doesn't seem like kind of a one and done year. Obviously Brunson, I think people, even the most ardent supporters of Jalen Brunson prior to the season, I don't know, thought that it was going to go this well. I mean, it was a win on all levels. And now he's on a descending contract that gets cheaper every single year, the rest of his contract.
Underpaid.
Exactly. How can you not be happy about that decision? And the Heat, like, you know, I know a lot of people that, you know, the narrative right now, especially as whether they close this game out or not, they look NBA Finals bound. And so you get a lot of people saying, oh, we ran into a hot Heat team, and, you know, any other year the Knicks are in the finals. And, you know, while that may be true, I think that's a little bit of a disservice to the Heat team.
Yes.
And yes, some of these guys are unconscious from three and hitting shots that they were not hitting in the regular season. But I also think you're seeing why, like, it might not be a stretch to say Spoelstra's the best coach in the NBA. If anything, he's probably top three. And that was my biggest takeaway of the Knicks series is like, and that's, I don't want this to come off as like hating on Thibs, but the Knicks got outcoached, and the Celtics are getting outcoached, and the Bucks got outcoached. And that's the nature of, you know, going up against a team with a really, really good coach is he put those players in positions to succeed consistently. And then they're veteran players who took advantage of those opportunities. But I thought the Knicks scrapped, man. I thought they scrapped, and I thought, you know, they made it a series. Even though, you know, I think people watching the game really thought there were some breaks that could have gone the Knicks' way. I think you have to come out of the season happy.
Yeah, I was definitely happy about it. I thought this year was a success any way you slice it. You know, if you would have started this season when we did our preseason content, and if you would have asked the question, you know, if this team finished 2 games away from the Eastern Conference Finals, would you, after winning 37 games in the year before that, would you take that? And I think Knicks fans would vote 1,000% yes. So, look, it ended. It was disappointing. And then this week, you're seeing so much of the silver linings and the copia, man. And as fans watch this Celtics and Heat, oh my God, we were better than the Celtics. We could have went to the Eastern Conference Finals and all of this stuff. I'm just like, man, oh man, we just gotta let it go, man.
Whatever helps you get through the end of the NBA season. You know what I mean? Whatever helps you man.
Yeah,
but I think it's also it's a dangerous way to think when you're thinking long term too. Is like you don't want to cover up, even though it was a successful season. There are things to improve on, and you don't want to cover that up by saying, if we had snuck by the Heat, the Knicks are going to beat the Celtics because they won 3 out of 4 in the regular season, and they're in the NBA Finals, and then you're doing a bunch of ifs, and you're not addressing the real issues that exist. And it's also important to understand that you can still be a good team and have real issues. There's a lot of good teams in the NBA that have had real issues that need to get fixed. There are very few flawless teams, if any. So it's okay to say these things need to be taken care of, and also say that was a great season and this team's headed in the right direction.
Yeah, and go ahead, Al. Go ahead, get jumping. Go ahead.
No, I agree with that, and I think we still need 3-point shooting on this team. That's not going to change. I mean, we just saw how abysmal it was. So, as to Eric's point, like, yes, like next season, great success. You talk to any one of us, if you told us, I think we all be looking at you sideways, being like, yeah, I don't know if this team's going to do that, but they did it. Right. So you need to change. There's principles of like the game itself, like the 3-point shooting, better defense. Maybe you want someone who's a little bit more switchable at some positions. Right. I think for me, when I look at it, and to your point, Eric, it comes down to coaching and it comes down to attention to detail. I mean, we're looking at Miami right now. That team is just focused. They're laser focused. The way they're competing against the Boston Celtics, there's no way you could tell me that the Miami Heat have more talent than the Boston Celtics, like up and down the roster. Okay. The fact that the Heat are just hungrier, attention to detail, they can drain the shot clock, still get the shot that they want, and they don't break. Mentally, they do not break. Yeah. And you see that with Boston, that they're easily broken. If something doesn't go their way, whether it's Jaylen Brown doing the same thing we complained about, Julius Randle not getting back on defense, Tatum being afraid to attack the lane in the fourth quarter, you have all your guys just showing up short in these big moments. And it's stuff like, I look at Miami and it's just like, what is Spoelstra doing, man? Like, what is he doing that we're not doing? Whether it's the adjustments, the constant adjustments during the game, whether it's what is he saying to the players to keep them engaged and locked in. I mean, look, we can look at what Joe Mazzulla said after that horrific Game 3 loss for the Celtics, right? And he said he didn't have a grasp of the locker room. I mean, that's tough stuff, and it goes to coaching, man. If you can't have a grasp of the locker room, get guys motivated for a Game 3, and not even that the players need to be motivated. They should be motivated that, hey, we got to win, but that coach has to be that kind of that ground, right? Where it's like, look, guys, we gotta focus, we gotta lock in. We can go home, and we shouldn't be going home. There's much more on the line for this season than what we're doing right now. So I agree with coaching as an issue, but at the same time, I will say that the players didn't execute for the Knicks either. Like, when they were put in the position to execute, they didn't execute. Thibs is not shooting the three. Thibs isn't, Julius Randle. He's not the one that's not in the frame as we're all that one play where we see the Randle turnover. He's not getting back on defense. There's a lot of blame to go around, but overall, yeah, I like the way that the season unfolded. I hate the ending, but the fact that the Knicks made it so far, you can build off that positive, saying we got something here. Do a little bit of tweaks. You remember what was it? The Atlanta president of basketball operations GM said last year, where it's like, I wish I didn't bring everybody back. I don't want to see. You don't necessarily want to do the same thing for the Knicks. So where do you tweak and do all those changes? That's gonna be the interesting part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a question for Eric, man. What do you think improvements wise? Because that's another thing you see people a lot of the social chatter this week as they watch the Celtics struggle against the Heat. It's like, well, we don't need major changes. We just need to add a couple pieces to the bench here and there, and we'll be okay. But what do you think in terms? What would you rank as your top 3 needs going into the offseason?
I think Alex already hit on most of them, I think, in this conversation. I mean, number one has got to be three-point shooting. You've got to be able to space the floor. And I think that was a real detriment against the Heat. You saw was that inability of floor spacing, especially when Grimes was off the floor, and you had those lineups that had Hart and Barrett and Randle and Robinson. And the Heat basically just sagged into the paint and said, all right, Brunson's not going to penetrate. And, they're going to give these open threes. And listen, Josh Hart shot poorly against the Heat. I think he'd probably tell you that too, but it's not a knock on those guys as players. It's just saying the Knicks don't really have a guy on the roster who is just a dead-eye knockdown shooter, right? It's funny we're talking about the Melo stuff. And I know we're going to talk about that later, but those teams, even with like a guy like Steve Novak, right? Like the guy who's on the team to space the floor and knock those shots down. I think that's a big thing. And then I do think that like a big perimeter wing, or defensive wing, to me, I think is really useful. I was looking at like the games where Pascal Siakam just kind of dominated the Knicks. And he was too quick for Randle. He's he's too athletic for Robinson. He's too big if you were to put a guy like Josh Hart on him. There's just like that matchup nightmare. And that was like early in the season before it was clear that Jay Crowder was never going to be a factor for the Suns or with anybody. It was like a Jay Crowder type of player would have been perfect off the bench for the Knicks. A big wing who could guard small forwards, guard a guy like Siakam, those type of power forwards, can also hit the three. Like that, if you could package that up, I think is a perfect person to put into the rotation. And then I think they need to decide on secondary ball handlers. They have to decide if they have one on the roster that they like, or they need to go out and get one, because there were too many times where Brunson wasn't on the court, and the Cavs and the Heat, and you saw it also in the regular season, teams aggressively sent traps right as guys crossed half court, and there were a lot of passes that got thrown away, or there was a lot of miscommunication and ball movement or whatever it was. And I do think there are guys on the Knicks roster that can work as secondary ball handlers, and whether they just weren't kind of put in the position to succeed and do that, or whether the organization doesn't have faith in them in that role, I think that's something that needs to be identified also.
Yeah, man. I absolutely agree on those priorities, man. Definitely need 3-point shooting in the worst way. Max Strus might be priced out of their market right now. The way that he's playing. I mean, you're hearing rumors of him commanding north of $15 million a year, which would be kind of crazy. But the shooting is at a premium in this league. 3-and-D wing. They've needed one since they passed on Mikal Bridges. We've needed a 3-and-D wing for the last 7 years. Still don't get it. And we're still, patchwork in this thing. And additional ball handling. Absolutely, man. Somebody that could allow Emmanuel quickly to play off ball, even though his playmaking had improved this year for sure. But I think they need some more versatility there and some more ball handling and some guys that could just get the offense going a little bit, because it certainly got stuck in the mud, man. And on the coaching front, if we look back at this season, we know all the storylines, how the season changed around December when Thibs made the rotation change. They finished 5th in the league in offense, and I think in the teens in defense. They made the 5th seed, so on and so forth. A lot of fans after the Heat series, obviously, a lot of people felt like he was outcoached. He left some things out there on the court, and some fans wanted to make the move on from Thibs. They look at the situation in Milwaukee, no Budenholzer. Phoenix Suns, Monty Williams, gone. Doc Rivers, Philadelphia, gone. What do you think about Thibs, man?
And what's going to happen in Boston?
Yeah,
right?
what's going to happen in Boston?
I think we know.
Yeah.
I think we know where that's tracking too.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't think there's going to be a coaching change. I mean, I'll just say that up front. Like, I really think that the Knicks will be as close to running it back as you can be, maybe switching out a rotation piece or two. But that is my feeling of what is going to happen, not necessarily what should happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see. Well, let me ask you this, Eric. Like, I don't see a coaching change either. Do you see anyone better than Thibs on the market right now that you would want?
I mean, I'd take Budenholzer.
You take Budenholzer? Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm over relying on, like, he had Giannis, obviously. But I do think that, like, in my opinion, when watching the Bucks regular season playoffs last year, et cetera, like, I've seen more in-game adjustments from him than I think I've seen from Thibs. I've seen more changes with the way they attack game to game, depending on who they're facing. I think that Thibs has a reputation for being a little bit rigid in his decision making, and it taking a while for him to make adjustments. And I think that the rotation switch is a great example of, like, how long was that something that people were clamoring for and asking for, and it kind of took, like, literally hitting rock bottom, and there were people after that Mavericks loss at the Garden that were ready to just throw their hands up and write the whole season off already. And I think that that's also crucial in the playoffs too, right? Is, like, you can't wait a really long time to make an adjustment. And that's what Spoelstra does so well, is, like, the adjustments are on the fly. They're after a quarter. They're after 3 possessions. They're after, just like one possession. And I do think that I've seen, Budenholzer obviously isn't on the Spoelstra level, or he would still be with the Bucks. But I think I've seen a little bit more of that, like, flexibility and that willingness to adjust that I find a little bit more intriguing.
Yeah.
And again, this isn't to say Thibs can't be that guy, right? I think he has a history up until this point of being a tremendous coach at taking poor teams and making them good competitive teams.
Yeah.
And up until this point, getting over the hump and taking a good team and making it a true championship contender has been something that's been lacking. Just like with a player, right? You don't want to say they can never get that skill. But I do think we've seen years of adjustments being slow, and I'm not sure we're going to see those adjustments next season. But it's entirely possible that maybe this year, maybe the playoff loss, crystallize some things that need to change in terms of the way the defense is run or how ISO heavy the offense is or things like that.
See, like I look at Budenholzer as kind of very similar to Thibs, as that he's a good foundation setter. I think for him, he was just lucky to have Giannis, like one of the best players in the world, that really takes you to that next level, right? We don't have that over here. I would say, like, in my opinion, Budenholzer is the same thing as like Thibs, same thing as Monty Williams, as guys who can create that good foundation for you, and they'll get you somewhere. But after that, they all have the same issues, right? Like even Budenholzer came down to adjustments going against the Miami Heat. You stayed in the drop coverage, and maybe it's because he did lose his family member, right, in a tragic way. And I understand that it's very difficult to think in those high pressure moments after such a loss. But this is not something new that was to this season. This has been like a whole issue that he's had throughout his entire time in Milwaukee, even when he was down in Atlanta. And I look at those three guys, and for me, it's like, all right, so we'll be changing a coach to kind of do the same thing.
Right.
And it's like, do we really need to make that move? Like, do we really need to like stir the pot for a different guy, different face, someone who might be a little bit more personable for post game, right? And
I think
that's kind of where I'm at with them.
Funny.
And it's like, if I saw, like, if you're telling me like Ty Lue is on the market, I'd be like, yo, we're going for Ty Lue. Like that's an upgrade to me. You know what I mean? If you're telling me Spoelstra's on the market, going after Spoelstra, right? Like Steve Kerr, any one of those guys. But I feel like when I hear the name Monty Williams, Budenholzer, I'm not even excited about Nick Nurse, whose nickname is Nick Thibodeau. So I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts on the whole coaching process.
Where are you on if the fan rumors are true, which, there's nothing that really we know of substance to it, but like, if you can get Jay Wright to come and coach his Villanova boys.
Hey, listen, man, I would love to see Jay Wright here. I have no reason to believe that he wouldn't be a good coach. I would love to see Jay Wright here. I just feel like, I'm with you. I don't think a change is near. The relationship that Thibs has with this front office, to me, they're in lockstep. They came into this thing together. This is their project. This is their baby, if you will. And to see the success that they had from last year to this year, it was significant. To make it into the semifinals, 2 wins away from the conference finals, I think that gives them another year. I think that gives them another year. And unless something just catastrophic happens, like it was getting there, it was teetering there in December, where the rumors were he felt like he could have gotten the pink slip. I think he's gonna be fine, man. The Budenholzer thing is interesting. But he won the championship with the player. Like, the coach is only going to take you but so far. As much as we love Spoelstra and how great he's been, he hasn't won a championship since LeBron and D-Wade left. Right? They can only take you but so far. Your talent has to take you to the promised land and get you that ring. The last year, if this Heat team plays like they did last year, they make it to the finals. And when I say that, I say, you need a guy like a Bam. Bam in this series is almost playing like Bam from the bubble, a 20-12 type of guy to go along with Jimmy Butler. Like, you needed that last year from Bam, and he didn't give you that. And that's why I felt like they felt short, especially in Game 7 against Boston. They just didn't have enough help from him. It was the Jimmy show. So your stars still need to take you there. I think our situation is a lot different than Phoenix, Philly, Milwaukee, all those teams that made the coaching changes Our situation is just different. In all those situations, you have teams with legitimate championship aspirations.
100%.
And it gets a little bit political, especially with the Philly situation, with Milwaukee, because you're thinking kind of 1 or 2 years down the road where it's like, okay, we need to start trying to do things to, one, make our star happy, and seeing, well, you know, is there another voice in here that can take us over that hump and get to the promised land? For the Milwaukee Bucks, get us another championship. For Phoenix, get us to that championship. And for Philly, you know, get us to that championship. And so, you know, that's why I saw those teams making that move. But for the Knicks, I just don't think we're there yet, especially in the talent department. Especially in the talent department. Brunson is there. Brunson was a great piece. But we still have to figure out, you know, what do we have here, and can those guys take us to where we need to go, or get us as far as we can go?
Yeah, there's a pressure in those other situations that doesn't exist in New York right now. Where, like, the Knicks have pressure to repeat being a competitive team that will challenge for a title. The Bucks, the Suns had the you messed this up like that. There's not another shot.
Small margin for error.
And the Knicks don't have that immediacy, and I think a lot of that has to do not just with, obviously, you know, the worse results than, you know, the Bucks and the Suns over the last few years, but also the fact that, like, the Knicks core, you know, for the most part, is a young core that could theoretically grow together into championships over the next few years, whereas, like, you look at the Suns, you know, they're looking at a group with KD and Paul and Booker and Ayton, where it's like, how much longer can you do this, right? Maybe you can do it for one more year. And when you start stockpiling up those stars like that, we saw how quickly it soured, you know, just in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't get a long leash with that. The Budenholzer thing, I was a little bit more surprised by, in terms of how quick it happened, because I think obviously this year's loss wasn't great. Mm-hmm. Last year, I think you could blame a lot of it on, you know, there were you know, issues with Middleton too, you know, and his health. I think could have been used as an excuse. For, you know, why they weren't able to succeed in the way that they wanted to. I would have thought he would have gotten another year, but yeah, I fully agree with you. Like, I just don't think Thibs is going to get fired after this year. I think there's a possibility that if the Knicks do what they did the last time they made the playoffs, right, and the following year is a big step back, you're in a different situation. But as long as things can stay on a consistent level, or, you know, maybe another step forward, maybe they do get to the Eastern Conference Finals, right? Maybe there's like that incremental sign of progress. I don't see a change actually being made. I would love to see changes within the game approach, though, and maybe that is in the cards.
I hope so, because these in-game adjustments were horrendous. The lack thereof was rough. I think when we start looking at coaching, and I think everyone's touched on it, it's like, is this team? I always wonder, is this team ready for that next step, right? Talent-wise, because when you look at a team like the Warriors, they had that talent, and when you had Mark Jackson there, it's like, no, we got the talent. Why aren't we getting further than the second round? That's when you start making a move. I'm looking at this Knicks team. It's like, okay, we made it to the second round now. You know, we can dissect, say, oh, well, we're just 2 games away. You know, if Randle, RJ just show up, and it's like, it's easy to say showing up. They didn't have enough. Their arsenal wasn't suited for this series at all. Outside of RJ. RJ showed up for most of the time. But when you look at like Randle, who didn't show up, you're looking for like Grimes to knock down some shots. Josh Hart started to vanish in this series. Like, guys got to show up too. And for me, when we start thinking about coaching changes, I'm like, do we also have the talent there where we need to make a coaching change? Because if we're just changing a coach for the sake of changing a coach, you might be doing more detriment to the team than actually adding value to the team. Like, that voice that needs to change has to understand that for a voice to change, there has to be some sort of level that you haven't reached yet. And now they made it to the next round. They made it to the second. They made it to the semis. So if they keep going back to the semis and they can't get past that, then I'm going to be like, we need a new voice here. Or as you said, Eric, if they take a step back, like if you don't have a competitive first round, right? Because every year is different. Who you match up against, every year is different. Right. Who you match up against, what happened to the team, were there injuries that you had to fight through to get to your positioning? Like, though, it changes year by year. So we can't just say if this team doesn't make it to the semis next season, it's a bust, right? We have to see how it all unfolds. But if it's the same situation where guys are mostly healthy for this year, you get a favorable matchup, and you don't even make it back to where you are, then I could see, as you said, Thibs getting the axe. But as of right now, I don't think that the coaching change, like, I'm not happy with Thibs, but I also don't think the change is needed right now. I don't think that's the big thing. I think the thing is, can we get more talent around here? And I also look at this team saying this is the first time Thibs has coached this team. This is the first time everyone else has been in their roles, right? Mm-hmm. Grimes being a starter. You now have Mitch, who was predominantly healthy for this season. You now added Jalen Brunson. Emmanuel quickly got bumped up to being the sixth man, right? You added Isaiah Hartenstein. This is a different team than last year, than 2 seasons ago. So let's see what tweaks they can add from this offseason, and then we can really adjust. We can really what's the word? Evaluate. We can really evaluate Thibs with a better roster.
And I think the thing with Thibs historically has also been when the players stop buying into, he is a very aggressive coach in the way that he handles his players, right? I mean, guys get 35, 36, 37 minutes a game, right? His starters are out there. He demands a lot. It's a grind. If you believe, the survey that The Athletic did where they, asked players, who the coaches are that they least want to play for. And almost all the comments that they claim they got from Thibs were like, playing for him is a grind. You're going to play X number of minutes a game. And you've seen in past stops that when players are with him, they're with him and the team does well. And then when players kind of stop buying in, then that grind becomes less of like a, gym rats. Oh, we're in it. We're going to work hard. We're going to get to the, where we need to be. And then that grind becomes, this guy's asking too much. Like he's pushing too hard, whatever. And then you see that it's not long until he's finding another job. So right now, I think that this team is filled with young guys who buy into that mentality. They work hard. They try to outwork the opposition. I think that that's kind of been part of their MO, and they're happy to outgrind and outwork the other teams. And as long as that's their MO and that's what these guys are buying into, Thibs is a coach for that. And who knows how long that lasts. It's tough to keep up that level of effort consistently. And that's one thing, like, I would have loved to have seen in some blowouts, like, get some of these guys off the bench. Like, can we get Jeffries some minutes? Can we get Rose some more minutes when, Madison Square Garden doesn't have to, stand up and cheer for him to get 3 minutes off the bench at the end of the game? Like, if you're up 15 with 4 minutes left, like, let's let the starters rest. Obviously that became a huge point of contention when Randle, had that almost injury in the playoffs. But it was something we've seen throughout the regular season too. And like, I know he talks about like wanting to get the guys into a rhythm, right? And leaving some of the starters out so they can really work on some things at the end of the game. But it's a long season. And you're asking these guys to play 34 plus minutes a night. Like, there's no reason you can't mix in a 27-minute game here and there if you're cruising, and let some of these young guys, step up. Because look, like, McBride vanished from the rotation and vanished from games. And I thought that Deuce was pretty good in the roles they were asking him to play early on. And I think a lot of people would have said that, like, there were moments in the postseason where giving him 10 minutes a game as a perimeter defender might not have been the worst idea in the world. And when you've got like Hart sprained ankle, Randle sprained ankle, Quickly sprained ankle, like, having guys that are your 10th, 11th, 12th man in the rotation that have had multiple games during the year where they're playing 15 minutes a game, like it becomes easier to throw them in those situations. And it becomes harder when, they go 3 weeks without seeing the court. So that's one of the things where, like, I love that he shortened the rotation. I love that he changed the rotation. But I think in certain dynamics, I think it would benefit the team to expand that rotation on a game-to-game basis, depending on how the game is going.
True indeed, man. We're going to take a moment to hit a quick reset. Salute to everybody in the chat once again. Hit that thumbs up button for you boys. Let's get those likes up. Off-season edition of KFTV Live. Knicks Weekly, episode 58. Part 2. CP the franchise here, Alex Rataros, Eric Samulski from AM New York. Call us up, man, 657-383-1509, or hit us up on the Knicks Fan TV Discord. Manscaped is back, ladies and gentlemen. Manscaped is back with us for the summer. Make sure you guys go out there and cop that lawnmower 4.0, fellas. It is summertime, so you want to trim those hedges, man, before you step outside and you get out there in those dates, man. It's getting hot out there, so it could get hot down there, if you know what I'm saying. You know what I mean? No testimonials. But, like I said, go get that lawnmower 4.0 and check out the Performance Package 4.0 because it's the best way to get your body ready for elite playoff level performance. The full package is stacked with the best of the best, man. You get the lawnmower 4.0, which is the greatest pube warriors that they make for body removal, as easy as a Steph Curry 3-pointer. The 4.0 doesn't only make you easy on the eyes, but it's easy on your skin with skin-safe technology that reduces your playoff-less nicks and cuts. Get it? Nicks and cuts. A little play on words, you know what I'm saying? Along with the 4.0, you get the Weed Whacker 2.0. You also get the Crop Preserver, ball deodorant, ball toner, so you keep it fresh down there. And then also check out the Beard Hedger Pro Kit, man. So lots of dope products by our friends over at Manscaped. And as usual, man, they take care of us. Go to manscaped.com. Use promo code KFTV for 20% off plus free shipping. And that's not all, guys, because Manscaped has 2 free throw-ins when you go get the Performance Package 4.0. You get a travel bag, so you can put all your stuff in a nice little travel bag, and a pair of anti-chafe boxers. So great deal. Great deal. Once again, go to manscaped.com. Use promo code KFTV for 20% off plus free shipping. Okay, let's go to the phones and hear what the people got to say, man. Dan from New Jersey. Dan, how you feeling, man?
Que lo que, wah.
How you feeling, bro?
Well, man, if you know you got to get right, you better get on to Manscaped, because as Phil Jackson would have said, nobody likes a ball stopper, bro.
That's right. Yeah.
Get right, bro.
Absolutely.
But seriously, man.
Yeah.
That was a really weird time, but I just wanted to come on, talk a little bit about Melo if I could, honestly, because that was a really important part of my time as a fandom for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 21 years old now, so I was only 9 years old when Melo got traded to the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the first game, it was yesterday. As soon as I saw this dude start making all these shots, doing all these weird jab steps, I don't know, man. Watching Melo was just it was I don't know, man. A lot of things that people felt when they were children and they were watching Kobe, I feel like I felt something similar to that when I was watching Melo in his prime, man. I'm not going to lie to you. At least on the offensive end, the things that this guy would do, it just left me flabbergasted. And I remember in Melo's last season in New York, it was my freshman year of high school. My gym teacher kind of invited a couple of us Knicks fans to go to Philly. We went to the State Farm Arena, and the Knicks was playing the 76ers. And we were able to go down, and they let us stand on the court as the Knicks players were coming out after halftime. And I don't think we was down by that much because it was a close game at the end. And every player was coming out the tunnel. They were a little bit they were a little bit disinterested. They didn't really want to shake our hands. Only 2 guys were really trying to make sure they got every single one of our hands. I'm not going to mention one of them because he betrayed us, and I'm not going to talk about him. The other one was Carmelo Anthony. Like, I'm telling you, bro, it was like 30, 40 of us. Melo made sure he got every single hand, every last one. And, like, he put a little emphasis on that. Like, you could tell he really loved the people. So, you know, that was just, like, my experience, me and him. Even though I didn't really get to meet him, I was just in his presence. But even then, you could just tell that he embraced the challenge, man. You could tell that he was really about that. Like, everything that came with the bright lights, everything that came with being in New York, Melo was the guy. And it might have been the biggest mistake in this franchise's history not to optimize what I feel like could have been the best player on a championship caliber team. That's all I really got to say on that.
Okay, but definitely appreciate the call, man. Where are you on the Thibs topic, man? When you're talking Thibs, what do you think, man?
On Thibs, man?
Yeah.
All right. Listen, man, me and Thibodeau have a complicated history. His first year here, he changed the culture and he did a good job. You know, I like a lot of things about Thibs, and some of the things that I like about him is that he promotes activity on defense. But as the NBA is moving more and more towards 3-point shooting, the less I think that Thibs' defensive schemes are actually relevant. And to me, that derails the whole point of having him as a defensive coach, because we did have a good run in the playoffs defensively, but look at the regular season, man. We didn't have that good of a season in the regular season over 82 game sample size. Like, I feel like Tom Thibodeau, I feel like he has an expiration date, and I know it's a really popular opinion, but eventually, if you want to go past the second round and you're not going to get an upgrade in talent that's going to bring you Luka Doncic, like, realistically speaking, man, I think that you need somebody that's a little bit more dynamic. Because the thing with Tom Thibodeau, man, is that he's gotten better at making adjustments, I feel like. But at the same time, he's just really limited offensively. That's why our offense was always read and react. That's why our offense was always isolation heavy. We're the most isolation heavy team in the league. And one of our isolation guys, Brunson, is really good at that in the playoffs. But the truth is, if you got Julius Randle doing isolation in the playoffs, you're cooked, bro.
It doesn't work.
Doesn't work, man.
Yeah, man. Absolutely, man. Appreciate the call, man. That's one thing, that I hope that this team changes next year, and I hope they put in a system that their players can execute. And when I think about this offense, specifically to the read and react, and I look at Julius specifically, I'm just not sure if that's suitable for him. I'm just not sure. And I don't know what is the proper system for Randle, because your top guys, your star players, have to be able to make good decisions to help make your team better. You look at Jokic in his brilliance. You look at Jimmy Butler. I think that's part of the problem with Tatum and Brown sometimes, is that they're not capable. They're not great playmakers to help elevate this team. And I think especially when you get into the playoffs and things tighten up, things bog down in the half court, your star players have to be able to consistently make good decisions with the ball. And it's one of those things that, Brunson, that's one of the reasons why the Brunson pickup was so key, is because of the way that he takes care of the ball. It's part of the reason why the Knicks as a team were so good at taking care of the ball in the regular season, why their offense benefited from that. You need guys that can make good decisions. And yes, the lack of spacing, lack of three-point shooting certainly doomed the offense, but they need to emphasize more ball movement and player movement in this offense. Hands down. They are consistently near the bottom of the league in assists, potential assists, passes made, assist percentage. They're always hovering around the bottom since Thibs has gotten here. And that has to change. Has to change, man.
Yeah, I think if you look at the best offenses, like if you try to look at the NBA and you look at who were the best teams for a time period, it just feels like those are the teams where you would watch and the ball just was constantly flying all over the place. Think of the Spurs in their heyday. Think of the Warriors in their heyday. They were always just, it wasn't just one extra pass. It was 3, 4. I mean, it was constantly moving. The Heat did it to the Knicks, right? We know the defensive philosophies, which, Dan pointed out when he called. I thought it was a great point where like the Knicks, he promotes activity on defense, but that activity oftentimes is like sprinting to close out on a 3. And Miami was just using consistent ball movement to just kind of have the Knicks running in circles and getting wide open 3s, right? The Knicks had the 3rd most isolation possessions in basketball this year. They had they were 1st in the rate of field goals that were unassisted, right? They were 28th in assists, and they were 26th in assists off of screens. So not only just not getting assists, but I don't think using the pick and roll, I don't think using the screen game as effective as they could, in addition to just being super ISO heavy. And I think we've seen that, like, I think the ISO part of the NBA is slowly, disintegrating a little bit. There are still some players that are obviously, you're going to see James Harden ISO, you're going to see Luka ISO, you're going to see that. But teams where the philosophy is we're just going to get our guys in good one-on-one situations and kind of clear to the other side, like that's not really a thing as much anymore. So I fully agree with you. Like those numbers are glaring. They've been glaring for a while. They were glaring in the playoffs. You have to imagine that people within the organization see the numbers too. So it's a question of how much they care and how much they believe it's a system issue or a player issue. And that really will dictate where they go from here. If they think it's a player issue and they just need to get one more star, which I don't necessarily believe is the correct course, then maybe it's not a system change. Or if they think it's a system change, you might start to see, some whispers in Thibodeau's ear about things they'd like to see be different next year. It's entirely possible.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. And I mean, look no further than Sacramento. Mike Brown, a guy known for his defense, turned the Sacramento Kings into one of the best offenses in the NBA in his first year as coach, on his way to Coach of the Year. Now the defense needs work. But I think, the way that they executed on offense was also a product of the players that they had. Mm-hmm. Indy Aaron Fox with Sabonis, one of the best passing big men. And he's not Jokic level, but he's pretty damn good in making solid decisions with the ball. Like, is there a system out there that can turn Julius into that in his own way? I'm not so sure. Because I think a lot of it is up here and how players process, especially how they process in the playoffs when things are tighter, when defenses are more intense, when teams like the Miami Heat, they're speeding you up all the time. Look at how they force Boston into bad mistakes, Milwaukee into bad mistakes, the Knicks into bad mistakes. It's a product of their defense. So you need the players that are able to slow that down, process, and make the right play, make the right reads. And I'm just not sure if Julius is capable there. But like you were saying, the numbers that you pointed out, to me, it points to them needing to make some changes there, man.
And I think to Randle, is he capable? I don't think it's necessarily is he capable of making the plays, because we've seen that he can make it. Can he be consistent enough doing that? Because too many times we'll see it's so up and down with his playmaking, man. He can get the ball. He can find somebody cutting. He can get a good dish out pass to the 3 and find Grimes for an open 3 or anybody else. It's when you start to hone in and you take away his game, right? When he can't score, it really starts to impact how he thinks he can impact the game. And that's the biggest issue with Randle. Is what I've always said, man. Good players, they can do their own thing. Great players, they know how to elevate, saying, oh, the defense is going to double. I got to find my guys and get them in rhythm. Because if they start getting in rhythm, that means things are going to start opening up for me, right? You look at Brunson. Brunson has the ability to, it doesn't matter what you throw in front of him, he can go get his. And he's also smart enough to say, I got to pass it up sometimes to keep my teammates in rhythm and to get me open. The issue when you have Randle as a big who doesn't pass as well, and we see this with Miami. You see how Bam's able to pass. Like if someone's going to hone in on you, you have to be able to find the guys who are cutting, utilize them. I'd like to see Randle, work the high post, find a guy cutting back door and get an easy layup. Those are simple things. Those are simple reads that I think he can do. It's whether or not can he execute on a consistent basis. That's tough. I've yet to see it since he's been here, because there are times where you'll just see, like, oh wow, that's a really good dime. Even the stuff that he finds from Mitchell Robinson, I'm like, yo, that's a crafty pass that you can get through there. Unfortunately, Mitch can't cradle it and finish the dunk, but he can pass. It's just, is he making the right reads? Is he able to understand that there's somebody else open? Because those are the times where he fails. I've yet to see it though, and who knows, man? Who knows? I'm not that confident that he can take it to another level because we haven't seen it here. He's been here for 4 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, we know that he had the 2-man game with Reggie 2 seasons ago. He barely did that last season. He barely passed out of double teams, triple teams last season. I think having Brunson here helped alleviate a lot of the issues just for him to be just a scorer and to really focus in on being a scorer. But to be that next level player that you can rely on, you got to be that facilitator, man. You got to be able to be that facilitator.
And the question we don't know is also how much is he being pushed to do that, right? Like those things you're talking about, like those backdoor cuts and that movement without the ball, like how much of that is being stressed to him by the organization or the coaching staff? How much is he really being told, like, this is what you have to do? Or how much of it is it just, let him be who he is? And we're not in the practice sessions, so like nobody's really privy to the like really close discussions between Thibodeau and Randle. But that is something to wonder, is like, is he being given a lot of leash to just play the game the way he wants? Is he being kind of like coached and to do these other things? And is he not doing it, or is he not even being really asked to do that? Because that really also determines how you look at how he's adjusted.
And that's the thing, like being a scorer, right? Like he always had to score on ball for the most part. He had to be the one dribbling, get into a shot. If he could cut, that adds a totally different dimension to his game. And he does that so infrequently, which is why people clamor for Obi, because Obi will relentlessly cut. Right, he'll go whether it's baseline, go down the middle, whatever. It's like he's constantly moving, and it's like if you just add that piece to your game, it just changes everything, because it's so easy to predict how Randle wants to score. He has to be set up in a way where it's like he has to get the ball, dribble a little bit, maybe he can get into rhythm sometimes, but it's mostly him dribbling and like getting that touch and to really like get into that type of rhythm. And if that's the way you got to do it, it's just not going to be effective in the playoffs, because teams will know, we'll just disrupt him. He's not that great of a hand. He doesn't have that great of a handle to begin with. He's not going to dribble between a double team like a James Harden. He's not going to get around that easily. Like if it's one-on-one driving, he can do that, but he doesn't have the handle to necessarily be that crafty. So if you're an opposing team, you could say, this is easy. Just we're going to double him. He's not going to dribble between us. Let him make that decision. Let's see if he recognizes it. And that's what we see every single time. And that's to his detriment.
Let me get to the Discord. Stock chasers on the Discord. Go ahead and unmute your mic.
Well, what's up, CP, Alex? What's going on, guys? You guys can hear me?
Yep, loud and clear, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, so real quick, man, I just want to give a shout out to Carmelo, man. Mm-hmm. Melo definitely came here when nobody wanted to come here. We had some really dark years, like you guys mentioned before, before he got here. And, I think he did his best. We just, we gave up our whole team. We gave up our whole future just to get him here. Probably would have been ideal to get him here during free agency. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I know we wanted to get that deal done. But, I mean, shout-outs to Melo. He's probably one of the only players. He's like my favorite player. So I wouldn't mind. I mean, does he deserve his number up in the rafters? I think it's a tough conversation. But at the same time, I would. Either way, man. Either way, I'm happy with it. If they do it, if they don't, but they should do something for him because he was definitely New York, man, and he held it down while he was here. So
okay,
it was sad to see him go. Now my other point is, I think Julius's value is up right now, and I think we got to keep the phone lines open. We have to see what's out there. I think this team, we learned a couple of things during the playoffs, right? That I feel like the intensity of the defense increases. And I just feel like the way Julius plays is not ideal for the playoffs because, it's been two seasons we've seen when we do hit the playoffs, like he's just not able to produce at the same rate. But then I also think that partially it's because Thibodeau runs them to the ground every season. So by the time the playoffs come around, he's banged up crazy, even though that's not an excuse. But I just feel like it's not ideal. So this is what I was thinking, man.
Okay.
If there's any way that we can maybe get Buddy Hield over here, I don't know if we got the pieces to trade, but he's a shooter. He'll bring length. But we definitely got to look into getting some shooters, and I just think Buddy Hield will be a good fit for this team, just to open up the floor with 3-pointers and stuff, and then I want to see what Toronto's going to do because I think Toronto's one of those teams that's probably going to blow it up, and I just I think his name's Najiri, the GM over there. He's known to want to fleece us. He's going to want to fleece us. So I don't know if we're going to be able to. I don't know. Get one of those guys over there.
Siakam? You want OG Anunoby? Who you want from there?
Listen, either or, man. I think OG Anunoby, he'll bring some length to this team, and he's a solid defensive player. But then he can also shoot. But I'm more so, man. I think we need listen. I love Mitchie, man. I love having Mitchie here. But offensively, I don't know if it's because Thibodeau doesn't allow his game to grow into maybe an offensive beast that he can be.
Yeah, but he can't be that, man. And definitely appreciate the call, man. I think, Mitch is what he is. He's a rim running center. You need him for his offensive rebounding prowess. And to be able to protect the rim, he's not going to grow into, he's not going to grow into just this guy you dump it down to and put it in the rim. He's not going to be that guy. But he can still serve you well if you have proper balance in your lineup. And I think that's another issue that they're going to come across as long as they continue to have Brunson, RJ, Julius as your core. The fit within the starting lineup, you have spacing issues. You don't have enough 3-point shooting. It's not balanced. And I think that is still going to keep this offense from truly taking off, is that they still have to figure out RJ, Julius, Mitch. How do they make that fit? How do they ensure proper spacing? And that's going to be tough because they're committed to those guys. They have contract on Julius. Mitch just signed his deal. The caller was talking about Buddy Hield, but you're not going to trade Julius for Buddy Hield. You might trade Obi in a trade for Buddy Hield if you're going to try to get him. But that has to be addressed.
You didn't even mention that, like, you talked about offense, but your core of Brunson, RJ, Randle has defense issues too.
Absolutely.
All three graded out below average.
Which is why Mitch is also important. It's tough, man.
And why he's exhausted.
Exhausted.
Yeah, that you want all three to close because they're your big money guys. But if your closing lineup has 3 below average defenders, it's an issue. And that's why you saw that stretch of games where Barrett wasn't closing games. Now RJ competed defensively in the playoffs, I felt like.
Yeah, I thought he did.
And he's young, and there's room for improvement. And he hadn't been improving defensively throughout his career, and I think the regular season still had some issues. But again, like, you see a guy show up like that in the playoffs, and there were some defensive issues, but like he got in there, he got his nose in it, he competed. Like, there's no reason he can't take that next step, and maybe that alleviates some of the defensive concern. But right now, that's a problem with those three guys being your top three, is in addition to the offensive concerns you mentioned, is how you close games defensively. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people want to talk about, like, Damian Lillard doesn't want to use the number 3 overall pick. He wants to compete. And can the Knicks find a way to get Randle to help?
Oh, if they use the number 1, if they use the number 3 pick, they damn sure don't want Julius Randle.
Right. So it's like, well, no, in terms of if people want to find a way for the Knicks to get the number 3 pick and, from Portland for, like I've read some stuff about, like, can Grimes, Randle, and future picks get the number 3 pick? And it's like, listen, I love the dream scenarios. Who knows?
2K trades.
There was a time where I would have also thought, like, some sort of sign and trade that also brings back Jeremy Grant, who's a little bit more defensively focused, has, some good 3-point shooting marks in his last few years. Grant's fallen off a little bit defensively to his previous marks, so I don't really know that that's a fit. But it's like, if you're going to move Randle, you're going to get worse in the immediate.
Yeah.
I think that's a reality. And so moving Randle is saying the rest of the core is 25 years and under. And if we take a slight step back next year to be better in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, it's worth it. And that's the equation you have to do in your head. Are you okay being worse in the immediate to be better for the next 4 years? Then I think that's a decision to be made.
Or you have the confidence that someone's going to step up.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
Well, speaking of which, I mean, let's segue to Obi, man.
Oh man,
but Eric, you just dropped a piece with AM New York today or yesterday on the Obi topic.
On yesterday, yeah.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
So what do you think, man? We're going in year
I see what
4.
you're doing, CP. I see how you do these transitions around here. I see you love to do this to me.
Listen, man. We that has to be figured out, right? At the trade deadline, there was talks of sending him to the Pacers. I was told that, his camp would have been open to a change of scenery to get him some more playing time. The Pacer deal didn't work out. Seems like the Knicks were looking for a little bit more, and that kind of flopped. But are they going to go into year 4 with the same situation, with having this kid come off the bench, 12 minutes a game, jacking up threes? Some might hit, some might be UFOs, not getting to the free throw line, just supporting cast, stuck in the corner, might cherry pick a couple of buckets here and there. It's not sustainable, man. I don't see it.
Yeah. The crux of my piece was that the Knicks should move on. And through no fault of Obi's, like, I think that needs to be made clear, right? Like, he has tried to make himself everything that the team feels like they need out of that position, right? It's a guy who in college took 1.6 threes a game, right? Was not a 3-point shooter, was not a 3-point shooter last year. And this year, almost 60% of his shots were threes this year. This year, less than 30% of his shots came within 3 feet of the basket. Last year, over 50% of his shots came within 3 feet of the basket. So he's trying to remake himself into that type of, like, stretch 4 that the team needs. And kudos to him. Like, it's professionalism to try to fill that gap. But he's not that guy. He's never been that guy. He wasn't that guy when they drafted him. He wasn't that guy when they drafted him over Devin Vassell and Tyrese Maxey and Halliburton, right? And guys who are 3-point shooters. And to me, it was always a little bit of a confusing pick, taking a 6'9" power forward when you just gave a huge contract to a 6'8" power forward. Neither of them really stretch the floor. To me, the only logic is, like, Randle had a mediocre year before they drafted Obi. He shot 27% from 3. Maybe they felt like it wasn't going to work out, and they were drafting Obi as a possible replacement for Randle, and then Randle went and had a huge year, and all of a sudden they have their 8th overall pick stuck behind their best player. But I feel like, there are teams out there that would have to be interested in Obi because he's flashed as a player in transition, as a rim runner, as a guy, in a pick and roll that can actually be useful. And I think there's a team out there that will play him 20 plus minutes and get useful minutes. And so, yeah, I think a deal is, I would assume, likely. I kind of feel like my gut is telling me like using Obi to trade into the back half of the first round this year might make some sense. I can't really see the Knicks sitting out 2 straight drafts. Maybe they will, but there are some interesting shooters in this draft. If you start looking like around pick 17, 18, 19 and deeper. And I think, Obi can get you something in that range. He's still on an affordable salary, and somebody thinks that he can, make a leap and be a starting power forward for them. So that's kind of where my brain goes, rather than like packaging Obi as, in some deal for a star. But I think maybe that's possible too. But then you're just saying you're bumping Grimes out of the starting lineup, or, whatever it is. Where's the fit? If you're trading Obi for a starter, where's the fit in the starting rotation? Is, I think, the question you have to ask.
Yeah. And look, if you're talking about trading into the latter half of the first round, there's 2 teams that could use a power forward, one being Charlotte, the Hornets, and the other team being the Indiana Pacers. So yeah, that deal with the Pacers could be back on the table. CP and Eric, I think you're referencing what Ian Begley reported with something for Chris Duarte. And we discussed that when Mark Schindler was on here doing that Pacers preview. We discussed that trade, and it's like it just made sense just because Chris Duarte has fallen out of the Pacers rotation, and based on his injuries, Obi has never been really included into what Thibs has wanted from that position to begin with. So it just seems like it makes too much sense for both teams not to get something done at this point, especially because I see Indiana. What are they going to draft with 3 picks?
And the Rockets are another team, multiple picks. Yep. Right. So you're looking at like the Rockets at 20, the Pacers are 26, I think. Yeah. So that's a range where, you're looking at some teams that may decide we've already made picks. So if you were going to pick Obi Toppin 26th in this draft or 20th in this draft, would that be, a valuable selection? If so, maybe they're inclined to make a move.
For sure. And then for the Knicks, to your point, like you mentioned how 2 years in a row where they don't really draft anybody, and you think about rookie contracts that are coming to an end, like you got Emmanuel Quickly, who you're going to have to extend. Miles McBride's contract is up this year. I know they just signed Sims last season. You also got to think about Grimes, who will be the year afterwards. So you want to have some sort of like healthy, cheap contracts on the books with some upside of talent. It just seems hard for me to see the Knicks not trying to get into this year's draft just to be able to set that, considering all the talks that this is a deep draft. And I mean, just the amount of teams who have traded their picks who are out of this draft to begin with. Like, I can't see everyone using 3-4 picks plus second rounders. Like, somewhere at some point, somehow a team's going to get back in there just to get somebody, just because, look, I know everyone's trying to have youth on the team, but there's only so much youth you can have. You need veterans. You need to have like a healthy balance of all that. So I'm looking at Indiana. I'm looking at Charlotte. Eric, as you mentioned, Houston's another team. It'll be interesting if James Harden goes there, how that team would be constructed. But yeah, I think that deal with Indiana, something just tells me that it just makes too much sense. Something about a Halliburton Obi tandem, just running the open court seems a little too enticing for them to pass up. We'll see though.
Yeah, I'd certainly like to see it, man. Salute to everybody in the chat. Once again, hit that thumbs up button for you boys. Salute to all of our channel members in the building, man. Salute, I see JJ in the chat. Who else we got in the chat, man? Jamaica Queen 22. Scott Novak, salute, man. Ty 73 in the building. Dimitri, son from Brooklyn, always in here. Son, how you feel, man? Salute to all of our channel members. Dubs Revo, I see in the chat, man. So salute to all you guys, man. Let's take some calls on the Discord, man. D Block 1755. Go ahead and unmute your mic. D-Block 1755.
Gentlemen, you can hear me?
Loud and clear. How you feeling, man?
Yes. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening.
Yeah.
Let's start with Mr. Thibodeau.
Okay.
I was telling y'all all through the season, and I'm going to tell you again. I don't want to say he's a bad coach because he took us to the playoff a couple of years, but I think he has really reached his ceiling at this point. Because even when I listened to his post game after we lost to Miami, and one of the questions was when they were asking him about Julius Randle, and he's like, Julius Randle's in his prime. Exactly what do that mean? I don't want to hear that Randle's in his prime. He had a terrible game. He played a terrible series. And Randle, I dig what he does, but he does not have the mental makeup. He has very low IQ. He's not going to improve. And I listened to the question you're saying earlier. I don't think nobody on his coaching staff is working one. He's just a loose cannon. You know, like you say, if he shoots and he having a terrible offense, he plays no defense. And he just has no. He does not. He holds the ball. He stops. He slows down the offense. And Thibodeau is supposed to be this defensive specialist coach. And we looked at real crazy playing Miami. The way they shot these threes, and not so fact they shot how just all they players was open. And it wasn't just that series. This was throughout the season. And I don't think Thibodeau plays to the strengths of what we have as these players. I don't know why we didn't play zone, man to man, but all this switching, getting us confused. We don't have, and some of our players, we just don't have that capability with the IQ. Like, what is he doing? And I don't see him surviving. If we keep him, I doubt if he survived throughout the whole season. Because if we don't make the proper changes, and we need to make changes with this team, ain't nobody going to tell me, being a Knicks fan, watching my team, my beloved orange and blue team, nobody's going to tell me we need to make changes.
Okay.
And if we don't make these changes and you just tweak it a little bit, Thibodeau's not going to survive. And I'm good with that. Because I listen to y'all. RJ got the bag. This is his 4th year. RJ, if I don't see no improvement, because he needs to get a secondary move with his offense, he needs to better up with his defense, he gonna have to go.
Okay.
Straight like that. He has to go. We need changes. We overachieved, so I'm gonna say I'm very proud of my team because we overachieved. But we definitely need to make changes. And I don't see Thibodeau. I think me personally, we reached our ceiling with him. But I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. But if I know we don't make
changes,
some correction, he's not surviving. Nor should he.
Appreciate the call.
Because I'm not really sold.
Appreciate the call. Dial Deo on the Discord. We just want to keep it moving, man. Appreciate the call, man. D-Block. Appreciate the call. Dial Deo on the Discord. Go ahead and I'll mute your mic. Dial Deo on the Discord. Going once, going twice. Okay. All right, so they're not ready for the big show. Let's go to the phones, man. 929 area code. What's your name? Where you calling in from?
Hello.
Yo.
Hey, what's up, man? I'm calling from Jamaica, Queens. I wanted to say, in regards to a few things. Thibodeau, I understand people are hyped. He is having some success with the team, but out of all these coaches that got fired, I would make the argument you could maybe see those guys adjusting the way they coach to some degree. Tom Thibodeau is a pedal to the metal, stubborn coach. And in that regard, I could see them getting rid of him because, like if you're rigid in the way that you coach, that limits how successful you can be. And it's clear that the last couple of years, there's a disconnect between the front office and Thibodeau in general. Like the Evan Fournier situation and the Cam Reddish situation are glaring examples of that. And as far as Obi, I would, if we're going to play a guy 12 minutes, I would rather be a guy that's on the back end of his career, get a guy that's going to be, not demanding and not an athletic freak.
Okay.
That was a crazy thing, And we could have somebody who's a spot-up shooter that we actually want, and you're not wasting one of the best athletes on your team being in the corner.
Got it, man. Appreciate the call, man. Let's try again on the Discord. Dial Day on the Discord, guy. Now mute your mic. We'll try you again one more time. Dial Dayo. Going once. All right. Not ready for the big show, man. All right, back to it, man. Let's go to area code 347. 347. What's your name? Where you calling in from?
Books from Queens, and I'm here for the tomatoes tonight, CP.
Oh, here we go. Let's go, man.
Yo, I am in full support in Thibs and Randle. I think we have collective insanity, and I'll tell you guys why.
Let them know. Let us know, man. Let's go.
You do not get out of the second round without elite shot making. The reason that these zones are effective and ineffective is because of the urgency that you have to close out on the shooters. The Knicks have too many players, either by injury or immaturity because of their age, skill, whatever it is. We don't have a bunch of Duncan Robinson guys that are just knocking down shots that if you don't close out, you get killed. That's not our team.
Yeah.
And that puts a ceiling on our team. That's
like
the talent gap that we have to fix.
Good.
And until then, Thibs has to win the way he has to win. What we're doing is we're taking the things we don't like about Thibs, and we're ignoring all of the structure that he put in to get to where he is when he's not losing as the guy with the most talent in the matchup. We do not have the most talented team in the Eastern Conference. It's a fact of the matter. When we do, and he fails, let's talk about firing Thibs. Right now, he is not our problem. Talent is our problem. On to Julius Randle and why I'm in support of him. I think we're in an Adrian Dantley situation with Julius. He's obviously not who's going to be on this team if we surround Brunson with championship pieces. But until we get the Dumars, the Brunsons, Isaiah Thomas, we need Julius to be here to win until we know the obvious moves to take us to the next step. Nobody knows what that move is. We have a bunch of draft picks. We have a bunch of young players to be able to make a move. But right now, we don't know what that move is. So we have to be patient. Most of our roster is like 24 and under. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about what we have to do. We don't have to do anything. We don't have DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine whose knees we don't know if they could last another season. It's a bunch of young guys. Growth is sometimes ugly. It's not always linear. When I watched Quentin Grimes make that play where he was hurt and he got the steal on Jimmy Butler limping on a hyperextended knee, that kind of experience is the kind of things that your young players need. I don't want to hear about a step backwards. I think we're out of the babysitting business.
Okay.
We need to hold on to Randle until we can definitely get better by moving him, not just because we don't like his mood swing.
Okay. Appreciate the call, man. Book from Queens. People in the chat. He said he's here for the tomatoes, man. So rate that call in the chat.
And he got some.
1 being trash, 5 being facts. I'm seeing some tomatoes in here. We can make a little catch up here. D-Block 1755 went all the way in. He gave that man like 100 tomatoes. He wants him up out of here like Showtime at the Apollo style. GN Jersey says, cut this dude off, CP. 3 tomatoes for G. Manny Banks chipping in. Tomato gang in the building, man. What do you guys think? Eric, what'd you think about what Book had to say?
I think there's some value to the points he was making about Thibodeau. I don't think Thibodeau is the problem, right? I think we all kind of talked about that too. I don't think that he's the thing that needs to be addressed. I do believe that some of the structural issues on defense are due to Thibodeau. Yes, I think that there are some issues with closeouts and there's some issues with player effort and that everything was highlighted with like the, Randle not getting back into frame, whatever. We talked about that before, but like, I think the over helping on penetration and leaving open shooters and hoping that you've got wings sprinting from one end of one side of the court to the other side to close out to help because we're over helping on penetration. I think it leads to weaknesses, and that's why the Knicks give up so many three-pointers. And people look at like 3-point percentage and say, oh, well, teams don't hit a lot of threes or don't hit as many threes against the Knicks. They're not like top 3 or whatever in the NBA. But that's because teams shoot so many threes against the Knicks. If you're going to put up a bunch of threes, your percentage isn't going to be as high as teams that are shooting less threes. This is the nature of the game with three-pointers. The more often you shoot them, right? And the Knicks give up a lot of threes where there isn't a man close. If you look at NBA.com has a bunch of really great stats. Their idea of like wide open is there isn't a defender within 6 feet. The Knicks give up a ton of wide open threes. And that's because of that need to rotate because of how they overhelp. So there are some issues like that I think need to be tweaked in the modern NBA game. But I do agree with the caller that I don't think Thibodeau is the problem that needs fixing.
I agree with that as well. Look, I agree that it's not all Thibodeau's fault, but as to Eric pointed out, there are things that Thibs could do to adjust to be better. As for Randle, I mean, I think we've been saying that here on this show too, right? It's not, oh, we go trade Randle for, a sandwich and some and some potato chips. We're looking for some value in return. And the thing is, the big question that you have to look when you're building this team, and it's going to get to a crossroads, guys. It's going to get to a crossroads because if you want to take this team to another level, if you want to add shooting to this team, you're not moving Grimes, okay? I get that everyone's like, oh, well, you got to think about the young guy who's not one of your big three. You're not removing shooting to replace with more shooting. You want to have them out there because you need shooting. And as CP brought up, it's Mitch, it's Randle, it's RJ. Who are those guys that you're looking at that's going to probably be moved if you're looking to add 3-point shooting? Because unless RJ gets back to shooting 40%, unless Randle gets back to shooting 40% like they did 2 seasons ago, we're going to have an issue. And I'm not going to look at, I know some people are going to say, well, what about a stretch 5? Unless that stretch 5 is Brook Lopez, Jokic, or even like a little Embiid, a lethal center. I do not want to see Karl Anthony Towns on this team because defensively, we're going to be screaming our heads off because defense is going to be lacking. All right. He's fast in a straight line, does not have the agility laterally to keep up with anybody. Do not sell me a Miles Turner. Okay. So unless you're going to tell me it's going to be Brook Lopez, one of the 2 elite centers in the league, which I don't see happening unless Embiid asks for out, the next steps are looking at your wings and your 4s. So those are the 2 positions that I'm looking at where you got to upgrade and you got to find some shooting.
And speaking of Karl Anthony Towns, man, there's been a lot of media circulating today. Karl Anthony Towns is in town. He's actually in the Bronx. He was taking batting practice with Aaron Judge. A lot of people brought that to our attention.
Throughout the first pitch.
Throughout the first pitch. Could this be a CAA plot here, man?
Stop.
I'm putting on my tinfoil hat, man. I'm putting it on.
Stop.
I don't know, man.
Take that tinfoil hat off. I don't need any of that nonsense.
What was the meaning behind that? Karl Anthony Towns throwing out the first pitch, man. Was it like some sort of charity thing? What was the tie-in? I would like to know, man.
I don't know.
I think he's a diehard Yankee fan.
He said he's a diehard Yankee fan, but he's never been to the new Yankee Stadium.
I don't like
that. He's busy with his job and stuff. I have no idea.
Listen,
who knows? He's been to the old Yankee Stadium, but you never been to the new Yankee Stadium.
Yeah,
his mind's not.
I think your point. I think your point is really good with you mentioned all the stretch 5s, but I think just a lot of the names that are getting floated of like, oh, the Knicks can acquire this star. It really is like how many of those guys fit, right? How many of those fit what the Knicks actually need? So everybody wants to talk about like, oh, this is the offseason to go get Bradley Beal, or the Knicks maybe are the other rumors like. The Knicks could be in play for, DeRozan. DeRozan is a sub 30% 3-point shooter for his career. Beal, hasn't been Beal is not a 3-point upgrade off Quentin Grimes. So you're going to put Beal in the starting lineup and take away the spot from Quentin Grimes. You're going to get worse on defense. You're not going to get floor spacing. And that's not to say Quentin Grimes is a better player than Bradley Beal. It's just understanding the puzzle piece that needs to fit with the Knicks starting lineup. And because we've talked at length already on the show about the limitations you get with floor spacing and with defense when it comes to, Robinson and Barrett and Randle and Brunson and all those, pieces, that shooting guard spot is kind of essential in the Knicks starting lineup. Is it needs to be a guy who can defend and shoot the three. Because if the four other guys in the starting lineup are going to be Brunson and Barrett and Randle and Robinson, that guy better be a shooter and better be a defender. Because that's the only thing that's going to tie that lineup together.
People in the chat have your answer, man. And it's been been a name that's been, thrown out there for the last 2 weeks ad nauseum. They want the unicorn back.
No,
bring back Kristaps Porzingis, ladies and gentlemen. That's what the fans want. He addresses his spacing needs. He's gonna rim protect. After you've seen Randle choke through 2 playoff series, the next answer is bring in Kristaps Porzingis. He can handle it. He can handle the playoff physicality.
Will he last throughout the entire playoffs?
He can handle the physicality of the playoffs. Bring in Kristaps Porzingis. He's the answer.
Listen, I just want to say, we were talking about these stretch fives. It's like and we were talking about Melo before, and it is just, I'm getting, I write about the Knicks, but I'm born here, raised here, right? Followed the Knicks for a long time. Melo takes the Knicks to the playoffs. They're the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference. They fall short. They need to make a change. They go get a stretch big. His name is Andrea Bargnani, and the Knicks don't make the playoffs again until 2021.
We're bringing up this man's name again. 2 days in a row.
2 days in a row.
The Knicks make the playoffs. They fall short. Or they don't really fall short. We talk about how it's a success, but people are thinking, we fell a little short. We need to stretch 5. All I'm saying is, we don't need to force it if it's not there. The Knicks don't need to force it. And that was one thing that, one of the callers said that I think is an important point. Is there's no have to right now. There's no have to in the trade. If something materializes, great. I'm not so sure that forcing a trade for another star, however you want to define that, to play alongside Brunson and Barrett and Randle and all that is automatically going to make the Knicks a title contender.
Can't force
We're really
it,
going to have questions and conversations about KP coming back to New York.
They want the unicorn
We
back.
want this guy back.
They think he's the answer. He solves all our problems.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
When I have to go watch this guy get injured again and be like, oh, wait, hey,
Okay.
wait. Oh, he's shooting threes. Does he have a post game? No.
I mean,
Wait a minute. We got a 7-footer. We should be getting easy baskets 5 feet away. No. Come on.
Guys, softer than marshmallows, man.
More than the 3. Is his defense even up there like it once was? I thought what was it? Your guy, Max Kellerman.
Yeah.
ESPN. Isn't he the same guy that said Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis would be like the next coming of Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? How did that work out?
Yeah, Luka tossed him out the front door like Jazzy Jeff, man.
Oh, man.
Sent him
You're
packing.
telling me one of the top 5 players that want to play with this guy.
Sent him packing, went upstairs to Cupid's office and said, get this guy out of here, man. He's not built for it.
No.
Man. Sent him packing. Sent him packing, man. Anyway, so to everybody in the chat, once again, hit that thumbs up button for you boys. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you guys about a new sponsor, man, and that is Oakley. Oakley sunglasses, man. Super excited to announce our new sponsorship with Oakley, man. I want you guys to express your style and build that look that's made for you. Summertime is coming up, fellas, ladies and gentlemen. Oakley makes sunglasses for the ladies too, so make sure that you guys are going out in style, man. And another thing that Oakley does well is that they have a new prism lens technology. Just sent me mine in the mail with some new shades. I got mine today. Very stylish, man. And the prism technology is a proprietary technology for Oakley, and it's available for everyday settings as well. So if you want to know more, go to Oakley.com and do your own research. And while you're at it, go there and get yourself a pair of everyday sunglasses, man. That'll change your look for the better. When you wear Oakley, There's really more than meets the eye. Don't trust me. Try it for yourself. I've worn a ton of sunglass brands in my life, and I can assure you that Oakley is not only the best looking, but the best quality out there, and still going strong, man. I've been rocking Oakley since I was in high school, man. So shout out to those guys. And for you guys in the chat, head over to Oakley.com for more information today. And shout out to our guys over at Oakley for keeping us styling and profiling. Okay. One more on the Discord. Let's hear from E Crossover. E Crossover, when you are there, go ahead and unmute your mic. E Crossover.
Hey, what's up, guys? How y'all doing today?
Good, man. How you feeling, bro?
Doing good. So I'll be real quick and everything, but honestly, I just want to ask this question to all you guys. So when the draft comes, right, do you think it's possible that the Knicks can get Jeremy Grant in the number 3 pick?
No.
If the Hornets are not going to draft Scoot Henderson, if we could get Brandon Miller?
No.
You don't think so?
Next
Okay.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's like, to me, if they want to build and they want to like still stay young but still stay relevant, I think if you get, if you want to get rid of Julius Randle because of, or a guy like Damian Lillard, if they're gonna build around him, a guy like Julius Randle would be the one that'd be more expendable for them to actually get. But I get probably not giving the number 3 pick if they have bigger fish to fry and to get for Portland. I know that probably won't happen, but
no,
true. But the main thing I like to say is that with this roster, it definitely needs to be a little reconstructed more to 3-point shooting, and hopefully Tom Thibodeau can find a way to run a 5-out offense. I thought he would do more of that with Hartenstein, because when you see how he was utilizing the Clippers, it was more of stretching out the floor, making it more relevant for people to stay on the perimeter with Hartenstein, which I'm not saying he's the knockdown 3-point shooter, but at least he became respectable in that realm. And I felt like he was limited towards that when he was with Tom Thibodeau. So hopefully he can widen up the offense. We can do that. If we can get a Brook Lopez, which I hope we can, but I'm not sure in the tail of his career if he wants to go somewhere where he's not guaranteed to win a chip almost every year, depending on how we construct the roster and everything. Hopefully that works out. But the number one thing that I think that they should try to do is try to see about this whole Celtics situation. It's the only way I can give up some of these protected picks and unprotected if we can get Jaylen Brown over here, because then I can solve for the issue of having Julius Randle as the second guy if they're going to keep him, and have him as the third option, which we all think he best suits for. So if Jaylen Brown is available, depending on how, even though they won tonight, depending on how the Celtics season go, because I'm hearing that they've been upset with the organization, how they've been handling things. So if he's the first one out, I say we do what we can and go all in from there. Because Joel Embiid, too injury prone. Damian Lillard, that's not going to work with Jalen Brunson, but a lot of fans want that still. But Jaylen Brown to me is the more appropriate approach. And if we can build upon getting dudes off the bench, like a guy, I'm not sure if Malik Beasley is still on the table. We can get him, and he's off the bench that can really work out and help us out. Hopefully Quentin Grimes elevates. Obi Toppin, I'm not sure about him. If we're gonna keep him, we have to utilize him a little bit more as a 4-5. At least try to stretch out the floor, see how that works out. And I think we'll be rolling from there. Because I think with the pieces we have, with RJ's attitude, I'll still give him one more year until he proves something, and then we'll see from there. But Jaylen Brown's the number 1 guy for me.
Appreciate it, man. He settled into cruising altitude a little bit, but his initial takeoff is rocky, man. They made tomato soup out of him in the chat, man.
Yo, your no was like, it was loaded. You're like, no.
I thought he was going to go with Jeremy Grant and pick 23.
You're right.
Not Jeremy Grant.
Right.
Because at least you got a pause for that one.
Look, man, Portland is they're in desperation mode right now. They got to keep Dame happy. They're trying to build a championship contender, which they have no shot at doing anyway. They're not doing it for Julius Randle. You go get Julius Randle, Dame saying, trade me. On draft night. Send me to Brooklyn. Get serious here. No, it's not going to happen.
You're telling me Damian Lillard won't want to run it big 3.
No.
Him, Julius Randle, and Nurkic?
No.
You sure?
No. It's not going to happen, man. Let's segue to the Sports Illustrated article, Al. It's called Carmelo Anthony In the news, obviously, Melo retiring after 19 seasons, man. Breaking news yesterday. LeBron tried to, upstage him with his own, cryptic message. But it was Carmelo Anthony's time yesterday announcing his retirement. Our guy, Chris Herring, great author, great writer of Blood in the Garden about the 90s Knicks, interviewed Carmelo for Sports Illustrated, man. Let's talk about some of the key tidbits from that article, man, that you found interesting.
Sorry, my fire alarm is going off.
Oh, man.
Wild. I have no idea what happened, and it just sometimes just goes off randomly, man.
Yeah.
Just goes off randomly. Now it just stopped. Yeah. Like the article. Thought it was very insightful. Great stuff by Chris Herring. I think the one quote that really stood out to me, man, is the one where Herring asked Melo, because there's always talk about where you retire both jerseys in Denver and in New York, which was the better version of him. And when he was asked which version, which the difference between playing in Denver and New York, Melo's response was, that version of me was more of a force. In Denver, he was saying. I was hungry, physical, tough. It was a validation of where I came from and how I played. As soon as I got to New York, it started to become more about he's got to change his game and he's got to do this or that. Between that and the intelligence you had to have in dealing with New York and all the media stuff, it went beyond just having to perform on the court. New York felt like more of a survival stage, if that makes sense. And it does make sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, man. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense. And then he goes on after that paragraph to say this. Anthony won't miss, Herring writes, Anthony won't miss being tabloid fodder in New York. He alluded to the deluge of criticism that current Knicks star Julius Randle has gotten. Now I can wake up and say, damn, thank goodness they ain't talking about me. I can sit back and rest, he says. I felt it for all those years, but being on the other side of it, I have a different perspective now. I see what's got to happen from a media perspective, but I feel for the athletes. And Mel does have a media company now. So I'm sure he's now aware of like the dissecting and how you try to think of new ways to carve up to create content. But I think it's interesting, man, to hear from Melo, because we always talk about how he was always there, man, after the post game, no matter how good, how bad of a season was. He always took the bullets, man. Everyone asked him the tough questions. He heard a lot of criticism. He's got to pass the ball. He's got to play defense. He's got to do X, Y, and Z. But yet he went out there and he competed as best to his ability and with the teammates around him. And I think those quotes right there, because we've also heard about Ewing talk about the fandom in New York, and we just see it's just constant testament to how tough it is to play in New York City, man. I think him saying that, it just continues to be not eye-opening, but just it's a refresher of how challenging it is, how heavy the jersey is in New York.
Yeah, no question, man. Like you said, he took on the challenge from day one. Never ran from it. Never ran from the media. But yeah, like he was saying, he could understand Julius's issue, but the only problem is, Julius hasn't been able to handle it as well. Everybody can't, everybody can't. And, the social media, the always on dialogue of sports media it's gotten more intense since Melo's peak of playing time, compared to now with Julius Randle. And I think these guys are all involved in social media a lot more now, whether they're on their own burner accounts or they're on their own personal time, or the spouses are on, like they're all on. And
you know about the spouses being on social media, don't you, CP?
Yeah, that was last year. But like, they're more involved and they can't stay off the thing. So it's a heavier thing to take on. On the role change situation, yeah, he was counted on to do so because when he came here, he was the guy. He was the guy. There was nobody else outside of the outlier Knicks tape 2012-13 year. For most of his time here, it was him and a band of scrubs.
Yeah.
You know, Amari was wilting away year after year after year, unreliable. So it was more on Melo to carry team. When he came into the league, and those Nuggets teams, give credit, they were making the playoffs when he got there, but he was insulated. He had vets. You know, Andre Miller was a big piece of that Nuggets team. They go on, they get depth, they get Kmart, they get J.R. Smith, Marcus Camby. They were high flying. You know, the Iverson thing that never worked out, but he had some pieces there that, from a leadership standpoint, can help take pressure off him, can help facilitate, and then also some talent there where he didn't have to do everything necessarily. But when he got here, that all changed. You know, the depth was fleeced with the trade, and so there was more on his shoulders. So there was more expectations for him to become LeBron and be all things to this team, not just a scorer, but a guy that can make the team better. And he wasn't that guy.
Yeah, and you see that, and that's kind of why it became a survival instinct, right? Because of those things where in Denver you talked about it. Yeah, you didn't have to be like, you were the guy, but you could also rely on everybody else to help pick you up, right? New York, after you traded a third of the team to go get you, now it's on you, and you have to be that because, and that's the thing about trades, right? The amount that you trade for somebody, you're expecting them to give you that type of worth and value to your team. That's why when you look at like a Rudy Gobert trade, that didn't make sense. That's why when you go into these Donovan Mitchell trades this past summer, and we keep saying, yeah, you want to get this guy, but you don't want to give up the farm because is he going to be a LeBron James-esque type of player that will take you over that hump? And for Melo, once that deal happened, you had to expect that out of him. And he was going to be treated like that, which he was, which is why he also got all that scrutiny because, yo, man, it's you. We're expecting you now to take us to the Eastern Conference Finals. That is your role now. That is the value that you created, or that not that he created, but that the team created for him. And that's where sometimes as a team, you got to be smart in like how you're doing these deals, how you prop up your players. You know, it goes the same thing for Julius, right? Mm-hmm. You give him a contract first year here. He's like, you made him the point forward. You made him the guy. So now we're looking at Julius from all 4 years as he's been designated as the guy. So that's where like I think he also understands like the scrutiny where it's like the value for a player that has just been amplified based on how teams negotiate, whether it's the contracts, the trades, all of that plays a factor in how you look at a player moving forward once the deal is done.
And he talks about the scrutiny in the article, not just like in terms of the public, but like also the Phil Jackson stuff. There's that section where he talks about Phil Jackson publicly saying that Melo should take less than a max deal to re-sign. And then obviously what that did to his thoughts of like, oh, this is how the organization views me, right? That they're not fully in on me maybe. Right. And so, you've got all the pressure of, heavy as the head that wears the crown in New York. And then also the organization that gave up everything to bring you here, you feel like they're not really all in on you too. And obviously, we knew what happened. We know what happened with Phil and that Carmelo was here longer than he was. But, that weighs on you as well. And I think the thing that I took away from the article, which is like, partially about the Knicks, but also just about Melo as a player, is like, I think we underestimate sometimes what these guys go through to stay in the league, as long as some of these guys have to stay in the league, in terms of not just the adjustments you have to make as a player, but the sacrifices that you have to make when you go team to team, right? So Melo talking about resisting being a stretch four, right? Because what that would mean defensively, that how is he supposed to do what he does on offense when he's guarding power forwards who are heavier than him and going to wear him down in the post? And then what does that do for his role offensively? Then what does that do for, him in terms of his longevity, right? Then you talk about the league switching, right? Becoming more of a three, more switchability on defense, more 3-and-D, which wasn't what Melo did. And he had tried to adapt. So there's just all this stuff when you think about guys that have the longevity that he does or that he did in order to keep playing, right? And he played at a high level for, even as a role player off the bench. He was a good bench player. Like, he wasn't the Melo of old, but he was a good bench player. And you have to change constantly to do that. And you have to, adapt not only to the game, but to the roles, to the teams. Like, it's a credit to these guys that are able to do this for, 12, 15, 19 years.
Yeah. Yeah, true indeed, man. And I thought he tried to do that, especially with Portland and with the Lakers. But after that was it, man. Nobody called, nobody picked up the phone. So Melo said, hey, man, it's a wrap. But, hey, it's a good career nevertheless. Didn't work out here as much as we had wanted it to. But, great career, man. One of the best to ever do it. One of the best scorers I've ever seen play, hands down. And, salute to number 7, man. Salute to Carmelo Anthony. And salute to everybody in the chat, man. Great show. We keeping it going in the off season, Al, man. The Knicks Fan TV does not go away. We don't sleep, man. We talk Knicks. We find ways to make it interesting. And that's what we do, man. Off season content continues. Fred Katz of The Athletic will be joining us tomorrow. Gonna figure out if that's gonna be live or recorded. We'll figure that out. But hit your notifications, hit your notification bells, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button so that you guys are informed and that you guys tap in, man, to another great show. Salute to all the super chats that came in, man. Ty73, salute. Salute to CT Pittman, a franchise channel member as well, man. He says Alex is speaking facts. I think he was referring to Alex's comments on the Thibodeau segment. Shout out to Stock Chasers as well. Ty73 says the Magic let Aaron Gordon go. Look at him now. Yeah, he's in a great situation now. He went from having to be the guy to being a great supporting castmate behind Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. 20-plus points in that series clincher for the Denver Nuggets. I thought he was an unsung hero of that game last night. Spaced the floor well for them. 2 key stops on LeBron James.
Defender, man. Solid defender.
Aaron Gordon,
solid
man.
defender.
Yep.
And it's just funny, right? Like, I'm sorry, I know we're going to get to all the super chats, but how many times do we see a player just has to be put in a different role to succeed or has to leave a team, right? You look at Aaron Gordon, you look at Domantas Sabonis, you look at Victor Oladipo. A lot of guys sometimes, man, it's just not the situation like where they're initially drafted or where they're traded to, that they got to go through a few other stops to find out where they are.
Find your fit, man. Find your fit, and he's finding it. Maybe it ends with a ring. We'll see. Hi, crew. Homie $5 super chat says I saw Thibs run today. I don't know.
You saw what?
So this guy Haiku Homie, all of his super chats are in haikus. Haikus being a form of poetry for those of you that are not well versed in your prose, right? In your bars. So Haiku Homie says this. He says, saw Thibs run today. His body jiggled a bit. Double DTT. And that was the Haiku Homie, man. So, hey, there it is. I don't know. Pause. But
clever. It's clever,
man.
Yeah. They find a way, man. They find a way. Shout out to the Haiku Homie, man. Stock Chaser, salute. Son from Brooklyn, $5 super chat says PCP and Alex. I have no beef with Thibs as coach. Randle is a great player, but he's not a good fit with this team as currently constructed. Salute to Son from Brooklyn, man. Salute. Stock Chasers again, appreciate you, man. He says we don't want Porzingis, no way. Throw some tomatoes in the chat. K Marco, $20 super chat, man, says Julius shows us the issue that arises when a boy doesn't have a father in the home. He's too emotional to lead men. I can't get into that personal stuff, man, and draw any correlations to basketball, but you hope he gets it together. Christopher Torres, $5 super chat says, how many coaches did he have? Name another Hall of Fame with more coaches with one team. I think he's talking about Melo.
Yeah,
look, it wasn't a overly stable time with the Knicks, to say the least, but
5 different coaches over his 7-year stretch, man.
Yeah. I don't know, man. But anyway, great show, man. Eric, great job. Al, great job. Remember to support our sponsors, man. Manscaped.com. Promo code KFTV for 20% off plus free shipping. And also Oakley. Go to Oakley.com, man. Check out their latest selection. Salute to Oakley.
Getting some Oakley ads now. Look at this.
Yeah, Oakley, man. Shout out to Oakley, man. So, we'll check you guys later this week. Tap in, man. KFTV, #1 show for the fans, by the fans. We out of here, man. Peace.